Time's up, Hadley. Time for some Type 40, a little extra Type 40 for you here on the Spacebook channel with me, Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks, speaking to you here from Dan's Den, really, the Type 40 console room here in the depths of the Black Country. Thank you for, wow, okay, we've got a lot of punters here already. Thank you for being here. Hold tight, we'll get started in a couple of seconds. There I am. Hello, everybody. What's all this about then? What's he doing? Yeah, it's just me this time. Well, for now, at any rate, got a few things to get through here this evening. I thought I was going to make a video. I may as well do it live, hadn't I? Just don't expect it every time. Okay. Yes. Yeah, so there's a little symbol in the corner. We are live. Yes. All those people say, "Is this live?" Yes, it is live. I am live and ready to receive your comments, whoever you are. We're streaming this live, or I am, should I say, to YouTube and to Facebook. Over to the Type 40 Facebook group and Facebook page. Hello, everybody over there. Let us know what you're doing. The week's just got off to a flying start. Obviously, there's a lot going on. Come chill out with me and talk time and space for a little while, if you like, while I pick my way through a few little items I've wanted to talk about for the last week or so. Who's here? Who's turned up to keep me company? Let's have a look in the chat. Hello, Sea Devils, says the Meta Whovian. How meta are you going to go with that, Meta Sea Devils? Are you looking forward to the Easter special? Are you a big Sea Devil fan? Or is that just a general greeting that you give to all? I don't know. You. We've got, who else is here? Daniel Leach. Daniel, competition winner Leach. Is that getting old yet, mate? Good to see you. Daniel won our competition a few weeks ago when we did our 50th live stream, courtesy of the generous and delicious Mr. JT up in the Doctor Who loft. And Daniel has his prizes with him now. I believe he's enjoying those. Terry on Tuesday. It's Tuesday every day with Terry Cooper there. Terry on Tuesday. Go and give him a subscribe and like and go and see what he's up to, what he's building next. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all well. I hope you're well too, Terry. Hope you've slept better today. Hi, Daniel. Ahoy. Hi. And all these people slapping one another on the backs after a long day. Well, it depends where you are in the world, doesn't it? Whether you're halfway through your day or whether you've had a long day or not. Come and chill out. And we're going to vent a little bit, but there's a few thanks to be given to as we get through this. Yes. So, okay. Who's this? Larry Van Messenberg is plugging his own podcast in my chat. Larry, I have to have a word with you, my friend. I recognize your name. The classic 80s fanboy says, evening all, really saddened to hear about Linda Barron. Yes, the late Linda Barron. Linda Barron was, Carl, I think Linda Barron was a little, an understated national treasure. I think she was one of those actresses that we didn't realize, God, this sounds terrible. We didn't realize how much we loved her until she was gone and how long she'd been there doing her Linda Barron-y things. Often the foil to brilliant comic actors like Ronnie Barker, of course, and David Jason lately. But no one sustains a 60-year career in entertainment into the 21st century based on being somebody's stooge or the bit of crumpet that lives a few doors down. She had impeccable comic timing, and whenever I saw her dramatically act in EastEnders, for example, and other shows. EastEnders was the one I think I'd seen her in the most. She played Jane's mother, didn't she, on that for a few years. Fabulous actress, lots of charisma, brilliant comic timing, and she was. I described her yesterday as the heaving Captain Rack on Enlightenment, which is one of my favourite Doctor Who stories. I'm a Davison kid, so why wouldn't it be? Thanks for reminding me, Carl. Yeah, and I loved her in Closing Time too. The Gunfighters. I know the Gunfighters is one of those love it or loathe it stories. I can't stand it myself, but then again, I don't like westerns very much. Larry, if you want to get in touch with me, send me a message or get in touch. Type 40 at Twitter, Instagram or Twitter at Type 40 Doctor Who, and maybe if you want to come on and talk about whatever it is you're up to, I'd be happy to talk to you. Ahoy there, ahoy, ahoy. We've got some ahoys, and a like, share, and subscribe from my good friend, the good Lord Thoth. Thank you, Lord Thoth, who's changed your picture, haven't you? Yeah. Anything else? Hi, Dan, says Cam. Morning, Dan, and Spacebookers from Cybermat Strikes. So where are you in the world if it's your morning? You can't be in the States. It's not the morning there, is it? And Sam, it's a simple hi there from Sam. And Lee Brown says, hey all. Oh, this is lovely to see so many people here. And Meta Whovian has, yes, they are a fan of the Sea Devils. Who isn't? Do you prefer the original Sea Devils or the Samurai Sea Devils from 1984? And when are we going to get that character option set of the new Sea Devils? Who knows? Or newer. 1984 is hardly new, is it? But it's new to me. Sadako24 said, Enlightenment is one of my favourite stories. It's one of mine too. And due in no small part to what Linda was doing as Captain Rack. I think she knew her role in that. She knew exactly how to play it, didn't she? She knew she was the pantomime bad guy. And of course, there was John Lee stood next to her. Or Lee John. Sorry, Lee with 3 E's. Lee John doing whatever it is that Lee John does. I think that he tried to outshine her, but there was no chance when she was wearing that blouse, was there? Hello, Thoth and Crimpy, says Carol Jude. Oh, lovely community. I love the Type 40 live community. I love the Gunfighters here from Crimply and Doubloon. See, everybody's Doctor Who story is every Doctor Who story is somebody's favourite. Oh, my words, mixed up on it. Robert Payne says, hello, Dan. Just a wave on the way past. Hi, Robert. Bye, Robert. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And aha, my friend, for the talents of Wayne Chiang. This is wonderful. Thanks for the warm welcome. Yes, so what is all of this about? Some thank yous to get out of the way first, I think, and some opening to do. So what have I got? I'm not used to doing this on this layout. Let's get this. There we are. There's my TARDIS. And let's get rid of that. And yeah, we'll have that up instead, shall we? Hartnell. Hashtag Hartnell first, always. Okay, yes, so we're in Capaldi's TARDIS. I thought I would show you what I've received in the post because people have been sending me stuff. I've been ordering things and people have sent me stuff. And first of all, I've been waiting to open this for a little while. And I thought you'd probably, actually, no, some of you have probably already got it. And here's a bit of a clue as to what it is. Okay, so our first pretty picture of the show. Check this out. This is from Syfy Toys over on Instagram. Check this out. That's telecom tower there in London and a couple of unit troops. Actually, I think that looks like it could be Benton, one of them. I recognise John Levine's sideburns anywhere. So that, yeah, the tower has been smited by the giant robot. Of course it has. And that's your clue as to what I'll be opening now, because I always have masses of problems getting hold of the character options figures. And of course, this has been announced I think it's 2 or 3 months ago, isn't it? And I was positively drooling on the live stream on Type 40 Live on Thursday with everybody else. And I knew I wouldn't be able to get hold of it. And I made a desperate plea. I did go and hunt around a few shops. I didn't give up instantly. But in the end, I did have to order it through a friend. And they have sent it along to me in this brown box. So I thought I'd open it with me. So if you have received your giant robot already, don't gloat too much. But by all means, join the Type 40 Facebook group and post a picture up of it, wherever you've got it and whatever it's doing. See, I've got this here, and it's been generously packed with bubble wrap, you see. And I've got to open my flaps. Steady on. And okay, now this has been said to me by a friend who shall remain nameless, but some of you may be able to guess actually just from Okay, so I've getting into the bubble wrap sleeve here that it comes. It's been very well protected, hasn't it, to stop it from having babies. And we have a post-it there that says just says boo. Yeah, I think some of you probably guessed who this is from. So yes, they were good enough to order me one, to take pity on me, frantically searching around the B&M bargain stores around by me to no avail. That's going to go on my symbol there. And yes, beautiful. Oh, look at that. Absolutely stunning there. So yeah, I don't generally buy the character options figures. I don't know about you guys. Let me know if you're a staunch collector or if you just buy the odd bit and piece. But when the robot came out originally, I was desperate to get hold of one, but it was one of those build it piece by piece affairs, wasn't it, originally? And quite frankly, I didn't have the patience to go around. My kids have got some of the bits and pieces, but I think we were missing quite a few of them. But yeah, that's absolutely stunning. And when my shelving goes in behind me, that's going to be in pride of place. And Tom is also looking just looking as wonderful as ever, even in plastic, as charismatic as ever. I understand that the colours are rather better than on previous releases. And if you want to have a good look around there on the back of the pack, if you haven't seen this before, there is the blurb, the standard blurb, always really well written. You can tell that it's Al Dewar, isn't it, who runs character. They really know their stuff over there. And God, it's very heavy too, so densely and well packed to keep it protected. That will be up on the shelves, standing guard, along with Rosie, the house Dalek, who's been sunning herself, looking after herself on a bit of a spa break. All that will be coming up soon on the show and in the studio behind me. So what do you think? Are you big character options collectors? Let me know. People are still talking about Linda Barron here. Linda was the mother of Jane Judge, wasn't she? The production secretary who married Eric Sayward. You tell me, Crimplin, that is a new fantastic fact that I genuinely didn't know that, if that's true. If anybody can co-sign on that one. Carol Jude says, I challenge you, Dan. Whose favourite might Kablam be? If Kablam is your favourite, see that Kablam, that's the least offensive of the Jodie Whittaker stories, isn't it? So that could feasibly, if you've never seen any other Doctor Who, that could feasibly be your favourite story. I don't know. Hail Whovians says my mate Christian there, from the legend of the travelling TARDIS, marking his 10th anniversary year, I believe, of travelling in said TARDIS. You know, it's very, very wee, very, very small. Gunfighters is brilliant, says Daniel Leach. See what I mean? I would have never had you down for a Gunfighters fan there, Daniel. Are you a big Westerns fan generally? Do you like the old the John Wayne stuff? You have to let me know. And lovely picture, says Queen Charlotte. I couldn't agree more. And poor Wotan. Yeah, Wotan's copped a dry slap there from a giant mechanical grabbing arm sort of thing, hasn't it? Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant. That's from Syfy Toy Photo. Go and find them on Instagram and give them a follow. Amazing things that they do with these miniatures and landscapes and lighting and all the rest of it. It always astounds me. There are several really clever people out there doing that kind of thing. Is it for play or display, Dan? We're still talking about the robot. No, it is for display. I suppose I'll play with it now and again. You may notice he'll probably change position. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I don't buy them very often. I've got a TARDIS and I've got a big set with lots of doctors and things like that. I've got yes, I'm aware. Thank you, Terry. I buy the odd bit and piece in recent history, says Lord Thoth there. And Jules Sherwood says, thank you for remembering the late, great Linda Barron, who was marvellous as Captain Rack in Enlightenment, a story I'm rewatching at the moment. I don't think there's ever a bad time to rewatch Enlightenment. What else have we got? Okay, so before I get into the other stuff and bring on my guest, because I have got a guest, I wanted to mention this because there's no Type 40 Live this week. We're on one of our regular breaks this Thursday. So we felt that we'd have something lined up for you anyway. There'll be a video on Thursday anyway. It's a pre-record where my guests are the Rabbi from Another Planet, Problem Being, and one other special guest too. There's a very good reason as to why it's a video only and as to why it's a pre-record. It may well blow your mind. You may well need a paper and pencil to scribble some notes down as you're going along with that. So yeah, there's that's what's coming up on Thursday for an extra long show. But I wanted to say, first of all, thank you everybody who's been commenting along on the 2 recent live streams. They have done incredibly well. So I'm talking about these 2 shows. Type 40 Live Takes Out, which we did a couple of weeks ago, where I can't be honest, I kind of let fly a little, didn't I? Both barrels over the fugitive Doctor, the entire fugitive Doctor situation, really, how it started on screen and is now being kind of wound down in comic book form, which I think is not only desperately unfair on the Doctor Who lore, but it's really unfair on the people who did invest in that character and for who Joe Martin's casting and the existence of the fugitive Doctor. You know, there are a minority of people out there who like that character, and I think it's quite unfair on them too. So I did go on a bit, didn't I? So that was on that one on Type 40 Live Takes Out. And then last week, Type 40 Live Who's Next, which was our big event show that ran for nearly 3 hours. And we had a blast, didn't we? There were 6 of us on the panel throwing out our suggestions about who we would cast next at this particular sweet spot in Doctor Who history. And that was the brainchild, in fact, of my friend I'm about to bring on now. Okay, so here she is. Joining me again for another look through the Whoniverse, it's Charlotte Shields.
Hello, everybody. I know it went well, didn't it, last week? I was a bit like, I think this is going to be fun and it's going to go over quite well, but I'm even surprised a bit how well it's been received. So thank you, everybody who's commented and viewed it, and it's been lovely.
The shit that's been shared, the views were like way up right away. And people are commenting too. So people are commenting on our choices, telling us that we got it completely wrong, particularly me. So people are doing that, but they're talking amongst themselves and throwing out lots of ideas. And it's always a really creative place. So yeah, please keep that engagement up. Keep it coming. And we may well revisit that topic. It depends on how long they give us, doesn't it, Charlotte, between now and when they announce who it's going to be.
I think we've got a while, folks, because I knew some people were hoping today. And I was a bit like, no, people were hoping because of International Women's Day.
Right. People don't leave that nonsense alone. Yeah, I'm well over all of that. What else? Yeah, evening, Nick. Evening, Dan, says Cynix. So evening back to you, Cy. Good to see you. The action figure set I've just opened. Isn't it gorgeous, Charlotte? Have you seen this?
Oh, yeah, because even I'm not so much like, I like some of the sets. BMI, I always get the name wrong. But yeah, that robot is
that's body mass index.
Yeah.
You mean B&M? We know what you mean. Yes, it's the most screen accurate 4th Doctor character have made. So I've been told by Ian O'Brien. And if Ian O'Brien doesn't know, then nobody does. You can never domesticate a Dalek. Well, you say that, but she's had.
Rosie's getting there.
She's getting there. Yeah, she's been away at boot camp, Charlotte. Away at boot camp. Kelly says agreed. Kablam was the least horrible episode of her entire run of the 13th Doctor there. And Carol Jude says I got a vintage 10th Doctor figure, mint in packaging for a very short time. Same one that David gets in his video diary. Oh, that's going back a little while. I can't quite remember which one that is, but David Tennant, he produced and directed a couple of the Doctor Who Confidentials, didn't he, back in the day, Sean?
Oh, I didn't know he directed them. I knew he had a bit of, because I know in 80 Days, the thing that's just aired, he was a producer on that. So I knew he did dabble in stuff like that, but I didn't know he directed some of them.
Kelly is currently watching Armageddon Factor in her quest to watch all of classic Doctor Who. Are you doing that in chronological?
No, I'm because I just watched the Space Museum. That's where I am.
Are you doing it in chronological order as well, or are you just cherry picking with?
At the moment, it is chronological. So I'm going through William. Before I was doing it Doctor by Doctor, like a story for each Doctor. But now I'm doing it proper. So I'm in second series. So I've just had the Space Museum. So
I didn't know you were doing that.
Watch. Yeah.
I didn't know you were doing that. So when you get to the end of the first Doctor, I have to have a natter about that, won't we? Carol G says trench coat. Sonic, great sculpt. And we've got a V there as well. What does that mean? I don't know. Okay, yes, that's the live streams doing really, really well. Obviously, we'll be back with more Type 40 Live in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, there are the podcasts. So we've just dropped today the latest edition of the Type 40 podcast. Just trying to remember who's on that with me. It's the Mega Geek, Ian David Diaz, and the wonderful Wendy from the Department of Wendology. They were in a little while ago to talk about David Tennant's very first story, The Christmas Invasion. That is now we recorded that live here on the channel, so you may have even commented along, but it is now available to download as a podcast on all the podcatchers that you can usually find Type 40 on. So Stitcher, Google Play, Podbay, all those wonderful places. And if you're on Audible, we're now on Audible too. That's what to look for. Go and search for Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, and you'll find us there too. There's not many podcatchers we're not on now. Type 40 Doctor Who podcast. You'll get all the podcasts and the audio versions of the live streams as well. So knock yourselves out with all that lot while you're waiting for more of the live streams. Now, I've got something else as well, Charlotte. I don't know if you were, I think it was on a live stream actually, so you would have been there. Now, somebody on one of the live shows, please like the video in advance, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the cluster bell so you get notifications about what we're doing next, the live streams, the podcasts, as we keep all this coming. But a few weeks ago, I was on one of the live streams and we were talking about Patrick Troughton and Patrick Troughton's sons and all this kind of thing. And somebody in the chat mentioned that one of Patrick Troughton's films was being shown on Talking Pictures TV that weekend. Now, it's a film called A Hitch in Time. It was made in 1978 and it was made by a group called the Children's Film Foundation. They were kind of, you know how nowadays we have films are made by the lottery fund, Sean? They get
sort of public funded. Yeah, it was a little like that. So it was a sci-fi movie, and I've got the blurb here. It says time traveling adventure that sends two children and a professor back and forth through their local history, and it starred Saoirse Cusack, Michael McVeigh, and Fiona McKellen. It had Patrick Troughton in the lead role, and so yeah, I was talking about this on the show. I mentioned the fact because I haven't got a TV license, I can't watch Talking Pictures TV, and I was bemoaning the fact that this thing wasn't available on DVD. Now, our punters, being the kind, generous souls that they are, they corrected me right away and said it was actually available on DVD, all along. And one of them, this has been sent to me. It's been sent to me by Pete. Oh, hello, Peter. Thank you very much. I'm going to open it now. So it's nicely packaged here. And this, I'm reliably informed, I hope it is. I hope it's not from the other place I get my DVDs from. Okay. They'll just censor you more on YouTube with that.
This is just when it goes to fuzz. Yeah. Okay, so. Okay, this is it. It's jammed right in there. Yes, so thank you, Pete. This is very kind of you. So what we've got is, so this is, he tried to explain to me what it was and why I hadn't been able to find it. So it's a DVD called Children's Film Foundation Weird Adventures, and it's got like a painted artwork cover there, which I suppose is a poster for one of the films. And it's got 3 films on it. So The Monster of Highgate Ponds is one. The Boy Who Turned Yellow, really? The Boy Who Turned Yellow is another. And sure enough, A Hitch in Time is the third one, and all the blurb of all 3 movies is on the back there, which I can't quite read in this slide with just my writing on there. But inside we've got a booklet, as you get with all the BFI releases. So yeah, there's the DVD there inside, and there's what looks like artwork for other similar releases, because they get these kind of fringe interest programs, vintage programming that normally wouldn't get released by any other label, gets put out on the BFI's own label with limited numbers. And it looks like we've got quite a thick, very generous, this is a really thick booklet inside there as well. I don't know who's written that. It's usually somebody like Andrew Pixley, isn't it? One of these archivists. Vic Pratt has written this. And there are summaries of all the films in there. So again, thank you very much for sending this through, Pete. That's very generous of you. And the film, so we've now got this film where Patrick Troughton plays a time traveler. It's called, just to backtrack it, it's called A Hitch in Time. And this is the only picture that I've got from it at the moment. But I thought, Charlotte, this would make a really good oddity to watch in light of its connection to Doctor Who. We'll watch this and do a review of it on the show. How about that?
So was this pre-Doctor Who? Then is this like the weird sort of coincidence that he was in this before he got the Doctor? Was it after the Doctor?
It was made in 1978, so it was nearly 10 years after he stopped playing the role.
Right.
So my guess would be, and they did get some name actors in these parts, but you know Troughton, he wasn't, how can I put this? He wasn't shy of the fact that he liked to work. I think that's the expression. He really liked to work, and he would do most things apart from shouting in the evening. And these, I think, because these Children's Film Foundation movies were cheap and cheerful affairs that they would show on Saturday mornings in local cinemas and things like that. I think it was seen as quite a worthy but fun thing to do. And there was always a lot of child actors in them too, and some of them did go on to bigger things. So what we'll do is we'll do an entire show reviewing that in light of the fact that it's I think it must be the only other film where Patrick Troughton plays a time traveller. But knowing our lot over here in the chat on YouTube, I'm probably completely wrong about that, and they're about to tell me about another film where he played a time traveller too. Hi, Dan and Charlotte, says Edward Braken. Good to see you, Edward. And Who Found Dan says, remember seeing that? Must have been repeated in the 80s. I think it was. I think all of these Children's Film Foundation films, I've probably seen all three of these. But
you just forgotten, yeah.
Yeah, because they seem to show them, all of them would get shown every summer during the school holidays. They would sometimes only show them on a Saturday mornings when Going Live or Saturday Superstore was off. But sometimes they would strip them across the week because they're like 70 minutes long. They're films, but
yeah, but also like if it's like a holiday here, like if it's Easter coming up, like you have a load of old films during the day on BBC. Then like it sort of gets a bit silly at a point when it's Christmas or Easter or a big holiday. Yeah, they do tend to put a lot of older. Do you think, God, how old is this when you see it on telly?
Things like Despicable Me tends to get shown over and over again. Lots of CGI
I'm thinking
stuff.
more just really old-fashioned films, though, not the CGI stuff. Like during the day, I've noticed that it seems to be during the day they put the like proper old-fashioned, like proper, even like you can tell it's that era when it was like really big music, like really big cast, those sort of era movies. Old
Hollywood kind of films. When it was all really impossibly glamorous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of miss those kind of movies. A correction here from Crimpling Doubloon. It was production office secretary Sarah Lee, who was Linda Barron's daughter. Eric Saywood married Jane Judge. Oh, that's yes, of course. Sarah Lee, didn't she make gattos? Frozen gattos you get them in Iceland. Is that right? I don't know.
I don't know, but also
stop confusing me, making me hungry.
For obviously the passing for a lot of people my generation, she was Auntie Mabel. We watched her as children on that show, so it's sort of I know her as Auntie Mabel, and I didn't even click until my
mum showed the picture. Flaunting your youth at me. See, my kids, my eldest son, he watched that, so I used to sit and watch Come Outside with him. And although he's younger than you, I think Come Outside was made in the mid-90s, but because it was made at that time, they showed it. You would have been probably the first lot of kids to see that, but they just kept showing it over and over and over again. And yes, she is Auntie Mabel to generations of kids. I think it's a wonderful thing to have done. They made a lot of those as well, didn't she? Had an aeroplane covered in spots, didn't she?
Yeah, and a little dog, Pippin. So I didn't know the name so much. My mum just showed me obviously the news with a picture. And she said, do you recognise her? And I had to look and I went, oh, God, yeah. And she said, it's Auntie Mabel, isn't it? And I said, yes, it is.
Philip King says, you've put the link up where you can buy that DVD. It sounds good. I can find out. I believe that my friend tracked it down on eBay, but I wouldn't know for certain. So leave that with me. I'll try and find out if it's still in print. I would imagine it is. But let me look into that and I'll find out for you, Philip. Saturday morning picture show for kids in our local cinema. That's where you saw them, was it, Carl? Those Children's Film Foundation movies. Were there any other science fiction ones, and were there any other Doctor Who stars that appeared in any of them? That's what I'd like to know. And Terry reminds us here the Auntie Mabel show was Come Outside. Film Foundation in the 90s were always shown at Easter time, I seem to remember. And Keith Chegwin was in some of them. Didn't he play? He played Junior Robin Hood, I believe. That rings a few bells. And they were regular featured, as Terry says, on the children's movie quiz show Screen Test. Yes, I do remember that. that can't have been a coincidence, because there was on each episode of that game, it was like a game show. And on each episode of that, there was at least one Children's Film Foundation show screen test. Is jogging a few memories there. As do the Mandrels, of course. Let's get them.
Your favourites.
There's never a bad time to stare at a Mandrel, I think, and it gives me a chance to just look through my list and work out what else I've got to get round to. Okay, so yes, we've done the live streams. We've told you about the podcast, and we've told you that there's no live stream this week, but there is a great video coming your way right between your eyes. You're going to love it, particularly if you're into Doctor Who mythology and the secrets of the Time Lords. If you carry around in you lots of headcanon and you like to sort of move the pieces around and see where it fits, where it could possibly go, that video is absolutely for you. I've also picked up, Charlotte, this is a couple of things that I've bought for myself. I picked this up. This was 25p. And I looked at it, I realised I hadn't got it. I hadn't got this in any format. So this is a DVD of Twice Upon a Time there in its slipcase there. They do this, don't they, with some of them? So it's got a sort of matte finish on the outside. And that beautiful artwork there with Peter Capaldi, David Bradley, and Pearl Mackie there stood resplendent in the snow, about to take it on the chin there from the Cybermen. I haven't seen this one in a while, but I've forgotten that I hadn't got it. So I thought, well, I can't just leave Peter sat there, 25p.
No.
I had to have that. And there was this too. I thought this would be a giggle to test people with on the live streams, because I've got a Doctor Who, what would you call it? It's sort of like a Doctor Who Trivial Pursuit set of questions. And some of them are quite easy. But what I've worked out is that over the different quizzes that we've done on the other shows, we've run out of most of the questions. So I saw this is the Doctor Who quiz book from 2006. And I just picked this up. This was like, it was 10p or something like that on the table outside a charity shop. So I picked this up. It's in really good condition, but I had to flick through, and most of the questions seem to be just about Series 1. So, Simon, sorry.
So JT's going to love it, basically. JT's going to absolutely ace all the questions.
I may have to save this up for the next live stream we do about 2005 or something like that. Yes, more reminiscences here from the Classic 80s fanboy Digby. That's the biggest dog in the world. You saw that on the picture show in the 80s. I remember that too. Loved all that. Darren Bradley. Hi, Darren. Good to see you with the same hat as me on, by the looks of things. Used to watch all the Children's Film Foundation films, along with cartoons, every weekend at my local cinema. Part of a government scheme to entertain kids every afternoon for 5p. Oh, is that true? I did wonder about that, because obviously I wonder if it's something to do with the lottery. Well, if it's the government, then...
Well, it's sort of similar, isn't it? It's not too different. It's
similar. It's similar enough. It's similar enough, I think. But I do wonder, because now the BBC gets a certain amount of, they make a certain amount of movies, but they make them through their commercial arm or whatever scheme they've got.
Yeah, it's BBC. No, it's BBC Films, isn't it? It's like its own separate sort of entity.
Apparently they don't make any money. Apparently they're always skins or whatever. You believe that? You believe anything? Okay, so there's been a few bits of Doctor Who news that have broken over the last few days that I thought it might be quite fun to talk about, Charlotte. Crimpling Doubloon says, didn't John Barrowman host a CBBC sort of revival of Screen Test called The Movie Show?
Oh, I'm trying to think. That might have been when I was watching CBBC, and it's not ringing a bell.
It was called The Movie Game, I think, and John was the third host of The Movie Game. Originally, it was hosted by Philip Schofield before he had silver hair, and then I think it was hosted by Jonathan Morris, who was in Snake Dance, the Doctor Who story Snake Dance, as I never remember that character's name, but he plays Dojan's assistant in that, the young man in the brown smock. And he played Adrian Boswell in Bread for years and years and years. So he took over that show. And then when he left, I believe John Barrowman was the third and final host of it. Somebody's going to tell me I'm wrong about that as well. They insist on telling me this when I'm wrong. I don't know.
Sounds like something he'd do, though. It does sound like a sort of show. Because he was, like we sort of said, I don't know if we've said this on stream, like that period after Doctor Who and he got that part, he was just everywhere, like quiz shows, like you're right, it was a bit mania almost of him.
Pets win prizes, all that kind of thing. He was part of that. I wonder if the Meta Whovians are around, because I've got another pretty picture here, Charlotte. This is from Paul Burley on Twitter, and this is just to prove that sea devils are now everywhere too. This is a sort of a pastiche advert for the kind. They were sea monkeys adverts that you used to get in the back of particularly American comics back in the 70s. I was never entirely sure what sea monkeys were, but
my sister had some.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are they? Are they actually alive?
Yes, but they're like the tiniest things on the planet, and you'd get like a plastic like tub thing with like things in it, so like a chest and little things, and you'd sort of feed them powder, and they were tiny, but they weren't like anything to really shout about. But my sister did have some.
But here you can see there's the Master, Joe Grant, and the Doctor, who are absolutely entranced by the sea devils. They're the sea devils in their own little, what would you call that, a tank? Bowl. Yeah, and it says, gasp in horror when you see the fearsome sea devils actually being roused from their hibernation before your very eyes in 1 second flat. Sea devils, a unique evolutionary offshoot known as Homo reptilia, are in fact so easy to annoy, even the Royal Navy can do so without help. It's a live horror show in your homes. That's very, very, very funny, Paul, and really reminded me of all those old comics from the 70s. So I did like that. Now, talking about things from the 70s, I always think that Christopher Eccleston seems like a man out of time, and specifically from the 1970s. I imagine that Chris Eccleston probably chills out just on the streets of Salford, pops into a cafe, maybe a working men's club if there's still one open, and they give him a newspaper. He can pick a winning greyhound or something like that, and maybe a pasty, and he's probably as happy as Larry. He seems like that kind of guy. But when he's not doing that, he's been at pretty much every Doctor Who convention that will have him. So he's gone from being somebody who was practically a recluse, and we never knew what he said, what he thought about anything related to Doctor Who, and now he's bloody everywhere. And this weekend just gone, he was here. This was let me get this right. This was Supernova in Melbourne, in Australia, and he was there over the weekend. And it says here, Doctor Who, Thor, The Dark World, and The Leftovers star Christopher Eccleston looks forward to meeting all of his fans on Sunday only in Melbourne in March 2022. Christopher will give a Q&A panel, no less, because they don't always do that, do they? Pose for photo ops and sign autographs just on the Sunday. So there he was, entertaining his crowd. They were captivated by him. I've seen lots of people who had pictures taken with him. It's wonderful. And generally speaking, I love that Eccleston's back. I love that he's doing Big Finish. And I love that fans are getting to meet him. Indeed, I hope to meet him one day myself. But that accepted, have you noticed that we spent 10 years wishing that Chris Eccleston would speak about Doctor Who, and with increasing regularity, the more that he says, the more that you kind of wish he'd shut up. Yeah. Because he's been talking again, hasn't he? And rather than moan about it, because I'm saying this in jest, really. Rather than moaning about it here, I thought we'd hear it from Chris's own lips here in this short video. So this is him at Melbourne, and let's get this up on screen. This is him at the event in Melbourne at the Supernova, and let's see if we can hear it.
More Big Finish production stuff. Are there any other Doctors, past or current, that you'd actually really like to collaborate with on one of those projects?
I'd have to dig them up. No, I've never been a fan of multi-Doctor stories. When I worked on the series, I had really strong ideas, surprise, about what works and what doesn't. And I always think that multi-Doctor stories are a bit of a cash-in and a bit of exploitation.
Says the bloke who charges 200 quid for a photo.
I looked at the script for the 50th anniversary, and I thought as soon as I said I wasn't doing it, it got better. Because, well, everything, if I'm not in it, it's better. But, the creation of the War Doctor introduced a whole new facet to the canon. I know it made some people anxious, the fundamentalists, but, so, no, I mean, the father of us all is William Hartnell, but the greatest Doctor is Jodie Whittaker. So,
Chris, I'd love to know if you've actually watched any other
the
episodes.
The Ninth Doctor in particular is a one-man band, definitely. So he doesn't work with other Doctors. If you want me back, you get me on my own.
So there we have it. There's Christopher Eccleston, a ray of sunshine. He, in all fairness, Charlotte, he is smiling. He is laughing and joking with people. Everybody's pleased to see him, as I would be, to be honest. And I do love that he's willing to talk about all of these things. But my God, does he? I don't know if he says some incendiary things. Some people have taken those words and really ran with them. People on either side of the aisle that divides fandom. Have you heard about this? Have you noticed it?
Yeah, I knew he'd said the Jodie thing, because the whole multi-doctor thing, it really, that makes sense for Chris, the way he's always come across. He doesn't seem to like the sort of spectacle of the history of the show. He never has. And that's not to have a go at him for that. It doesn't seem to interest him. Whereas,
he doesn't like it or doesn't understand it. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. Because it just, like, if you, like, when Tennant talks about the show and, like, that sort of idea of a multi-doctor, you can see he's excited. He loves to sort of look back, and because he's a fan. Yeah. And I think Chris is somebody who's a professional actor who came into the show to do a part. So, and he's never been a fan, and he's been honest about this. So that's why I think I'm not surprised about the multi-doctor stuff, because it just sounds like, as somebody who's from the outside, you would sort of see it a bit cynical. You would see it as sort of, oh, it's just a cash grab. So I wasn't surprised about that. But the way he said the Jodie thing, for me, it comes across as he's being flippant. He's having a joke, because he knows it's going to get a reaction. And I think the Jodie thing was, if there's anything from that was trying to get a bit of a reaction, I do think it's the Jodie comment.
See, I think that it is largely harmless. I don't think he meant anything by that.
Oh, that's
one
what I
way
mean.
or another.
It's sort of, he knows he's going to get a reaction, so he's just sort of saying it, not to purposely annoy people.
No, I believe that he's got every reason to believe. Particularly, I don't believe, for example, that Chris Eccleston has watched a great deal of Doctor Who. He says, "I've never been a fan of multi-Doctor stories." I come on, Chris. I don't believe that Chris watched The Day of the Doctor. Obviously, he read the script.
No.
But I don't think he's ever seen any of the other scripts. I don't believe he's ever seen the 5 Doctors or the 3 Doctors. Or if he did, they would be faint memories from his own childhood. So, with the greatest of respect, realistically, what does he know? I mean, he says when he worked on the series, he had strong ideas, and that's fine. I think more actors than Chris realizes had strong ideas about the character than he's willing to accept. It wasn't just him. He just had his ideas, and he felt his way about them. I think Colin also had very strong ideas about what he wanted to do with the part and who the character was. I suspect that I don't think John Pertwee would have done. No, actually, I think he probably did. I think Peter Davison obviously was a little more in doubt about it, but I think Sylvester absolutely developed his own idea about, it's pretty strong ideas about where he needed to take it and how it needed to work for him, and David too. I think I don't think he's being arrogant, but he has this essence. I think it's part of the enigma of Chris Eccleston, very like Tom Baker in many respects. He almost behaves like he's the only man who's ever played the part. Like, he knows he hasn't. He's been perfectly civil to the other Doctors. But when he says that he always felt that multi-Doctor stories were a cash-in, this is a man who, I've always admired his honesty, Charlotte. And not long ago, he was happy to admit that he was doing Big Finish for the money.
Yeah, no, I think it's the term. I think that maybe wasn't best advised. I think if he could have said, "Oh, it's a bit of spectacle, it's a bit of sort of nostalgia," I think that's fair. That is a fair comment. But I think, like you said, it's the cash grab comment when you're just like, Well,
He's happy to grab
you're
the cash
doing
when it
Big
suits him.
Finish, which I'm guessing they pay you, Chris, for that. You won't do that for free. And like you said, it's the autographs. Because I think sometimes he just really doesn't think what he says. He doesn't think through what comes out of his mouth.
And to be fair, they're fairly informal events. He's there in an environment surrounded by people who he knows like him, who love his work. And I would imagine they are sort of sat around him. We saw them, they're kind of beaming up at him because that's how we view somebody who's inhabited that role, who's made our childhoods. And so part of me thinks, well, what else was he going to say? Is he going to say something that was going to risk upsetting somebody, a group of people within that audience? You may as well sit. I mean, he doesn't sit on the fence about his own career because obviously that's very personal to him. But the idea that multi-doctor stories are an exploitation, I think I don't expect Chris Eccleston to be an expert on this. I think cash in and exploitation are very loaded terms.
Yes.
For what I view as celebratory and perhaps indulgent at their very, very worst. But a cash in, really, when these are shown on TV, if you've already paid your license, then they've already got your money. You're not paying any extra to see this. So what? How are people cashing in? I don't really understand.
And if you think about New Who, we've only had one. I mean, as a big, I know obviously Twice Upon a Time you've shown it there. That was technically a multi-doctor story, but it didn't feel like a multi-doctor in the sense that it's just everybody's here. Whereas the 50th, because it was the 50th. So I honestly think when it comes to the show, we've not had a lot of multi-doctor. It's almost everything outside the show that sort of made it feels like we've had too many at this point, because Big Finish have done a number, I know. Obviously the comics probably have done it at a time. So it seems like everything outside the show is sort of indulged, whilst the show, I don't think it has too much, really.
I'm looking at the comments in the chat here, Charlotte, and there are a lot of people who Chris has got people's backs up with this statement. Now, for me, I can take this with a pinch of salt. Like I say, I think it's an element of his performance. He's connecting with people and kind of telling them what he thinks that they want to hear. Sadako24 says, I think he's always hated the idea of the Doctor as middle class. He preferred the idea of the Doctor as a more working class figure, and probably sees Jodie as the only other one in that light. That's a
but he's said other comments about Jodie, and I don't want to sort of put words into his mouth, but if you look at, because obviously he's done other conventions like you said, and he's talked about Jodie before, and I don't know, it just comes across a bit of he just likes the idea of a female Doctor to me, and that's why he maybe puts her up on a pedestal.
Well, he is very he's a proper card-carrying, old-school socialist. He's a leftist.
That's what I mean.
He's
it's more
very
the
progressive.
Politics, maybe.
He's very progressive, and he's very very left-wing. But when he says the father of us all is William Hartnell, I thought, I'm glad that somebody said that. Hartnell first, always. But the greatest Doctor is Jodie. The greatest. That's a word. When I hear the word greatest, I think of Muhammad Ali and people like that, people who excelled in their field. I think there is. I do not believe for 1 minute, just like I don't believe that Chris Eccleston has ever seen the 3 Doctors, the 5 Doctors, the 2 Doctors, anything like that. I would be amazed if Chris Eccleston has ever seen a single episode of Jodie Whittaker playing the Doctor. Just like Colin Baker, I think he's happy to go out there and say she's the best, she's this, and wear the T-shirts and whatever else. But I don't believe he's ever actually seen her. Otherwise, I think he would choose his words a little more carefully. I think that people on Twitter, unsurprisingly, have really latched onto that and said, that's all for you. You'll all turn on Chris Eccleston. No. I still respect Chris Eccleston enormously. I know who Chris Eccleston is. I know what his values are. And I think I've got a fair idea of the kind of man that he is. And I respect that, but that doesn't mean I can't talk about the things that he says. And if not dissect them, then certainly debate them, and to try and see the shades of grey in what he says and what he means. And I feel that people on the other side of the aisle, who are maybe Jodie fans, latching onto this as endorsement, saying, in your face, she's the greatest after all. I think that it's very unrealistic of them to do that too, and it's very childish too, because the fact is they're both actors. I've spoken about this on Type 40 Live several times. There's a code of etiquette between actors.
Yes.
They never know when they're going to be working with one. This is a general principle. Somebody you slag off one week, you could be working with the next. And sure enough, Chris Eccleston has worked very closely with Jodie Whittaker on the stage.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's
friends.
a personal, like I said, I think the whole Jodie thing, it's a lot of things. It's the personal connection. I do think the fact that she's a northerner will endear her to him, because he talks a lot about being from Salford.
Maybe, yeah.
You can see he's very proud. That's what Chris has always come across to me. He doesn't want to hide his roots. He loves his roots. He loves having that working class. So he probably sees that in her. But also, like I said, I think some of it is his previous comments. I think at another convention he was saying like, he thought they should have brought the show back with a female. So he was like,
really?
I'm really happy Jodie's now being the female Doctor. So I think some of this,
I think that's him being
pantomime.
I think that's him being self-effacing and him being self-deprecating and kind of saying, you don't want to hear about me, you want to hear about the new one, because that's what he thinks that the show's all about, and that's his very much his leanings, his progressive leanings. There are more comments from people in the chat who just aren't on board with this or aren't having any of it and seeing right through it. He hasn't watched it since Troughton, says Who Fan Dan, and maybe
and that's the problem. You can because he's not a watcher of it. So when you see he's making these comments, you just think, well, we know you're not a fan, and have you even, like I sort of said, well, he said it, have you watched any other episodes? Because it just seems like, and Colin, I think he even admitted, didn't he? Oh no, I've not watched her, but she's like really good.
But she's amazing. Yeah.
So I just think it's the same thing here, honestly. That's why I don't think we should put too much weight in the comment.
No, I think it should be. I think this should be kind of largely just forgotten. It's something that he said when he was on a professional engagement to a crowd that he believed that. Look, when he was answering all these questions about the future and about the 60th anniversary and whatever else, he was already telling people a lot of what he knew they didn't want to hear, maybe. So this was probably what he felt was a safe ball. Particularly if there's people out there in front of him who are wearing Jodie t-shirts or whatever. I don't know if they were or if they weren't, but I think this was a sweetener from him. I think people are putting way too much store by it, and I can see there's anger here in the chat, and I would advise not to be angry at Chris Eccleston, to take it with a pinch of salt. He's an actor, and this is kind of a performance too. I was thinking about how if I'd love to meet Christopher Eccleston, and I think Jodie Whittaker's appalling. I may have mentioned it a few times, but quite honestly, Charlotte, if I met Christopher Eccleston, the very last thing on my list of things that I'd want to talk to him about would be Jodie Whittaker, frankly. But there will be people who would feel differently.
Yeah, and also I think we've got to remember the industry, the way the media has acted the last couple of years, or the nerd sort of screen rant and that type of thing, they're all pro Jodie. And sometimes actors don't really look at what's actually going on. They just look at the headlines and they look at the media. And if the media's saying, oh, she's amazing, she's done so well, everybody loves the female Doctor, then they might not even know that actually, if you look at social media that isn't curated, if you actually look at all the more broad things like the viewing figures, like everything else we have talked about, there's your proof she's not done well. But the media is telling us she's done really well. So Chris might just be seeing that sphere and not the actual real life situation in a sense.
No, I think you're probably right. I mean, it doesn't hurt as well that the man has got a TV series that he's out plugging at the moment. So this is probably
which is also on BBC, folks. It's on CBBC. So do you think he's going to slight the BBC's current Doctor when he's working for them?
Yeah. This is Dodger, which bear in mind that Chris Eccleston has had an up and down relationship with the BBC, but he's on there at the moment, starring in Dodger. I believe that some of it, not all of it, is already up on the iPlayer. The rest of it's coming over the next few days. Looks like a fun show. I'll probably catch it at some point on home media or something like that. Because I would watch Christopher Eccleston in pretty much anything when he's acting. It's just now and again the things that he says that I think, well, it's food for thought. It's never anything less than food for thought. But I do feel like a lot of
don't lose sleep over it.
Don't lose any sleep. Exactly, don't lose any sleep over it. And he's talking about things that he doesn't necessarily understand. I did want to talk about the idea of the multi-doctor story though, because that was the interesting part, wasn't it? We are getting ever closer to 2023 and the 60th anniversary, and with Christopher Eccleston being at conventions on Big Finish and all the rest of it, obviously our hopes were rising that we would get some sort of interest, a flicker of interest or confirmation that he would consider being in the 60th anniversary. Now, back in 2020, he spoke to Lorraine Kelly on her breakfast TV show. If you want to, I'll tell you something. I can't think of anything that would put me in a worse mood than having to speak to Lorraine Kelly at 7 o'clock in the morning. So,
and it looked like he was like going to work. He was like in the car.
Unsurprisingly, he gave her short shift. And when she asked him, would you ever play the Doctor again? He says, this is just 2 years ago. He said, when hell freezes over. So, but here we are now in 2022, and he's at conventions. He's a little deeper into this, and on the other side of the pandemic. And I'm interested by the comments where he describes the Ninth Doctor in particular as a one-man band. He says the Doctor is a one-man band, definitely. So he doesn't work with other doctors. If you want to get me back, you get me on my own. Now, that interests me. That is a long way away from the when hell freezes over. He's not saying we don't get him. We would just get him on his own.
Which is what he's doing, which is Big Finish. So I think that sort of, if you've got to try and glean anything from this, it probably is, he's probably quite secure and happy at Big Finish by that comment. Because it is just him. Obviously, they're side characters, there's other characters, but it's his Doctor. And it's very much, and that's why, honestly, when he announced his Big Finish stuff, after thinking about it, I wasn't that surprised. Because it suits him, really down to a T. Well, also, rumours haven't gone away. You know, this story, we've been talking about it since January, the idea that David Tennant could be returning to the series, not just as in a one-off capacity, but possibly for a little longer. And that there may be, you know, the current rumour that's doing the rounds yet again. And I first heard this one about 18 months ago. I think that Noel Glynn on the TARDIS Zone YouTube channel might have broke this. The idea, the concept that a 60th anniversary celebration event could be made up of multiple episodes where each would feature a different, certainly new series Doctor and companion in a standalone story, perhaps stripped across a week, that could be in some way connected. Now, obviously, this was a long time before Russell T Davies entered the frame again. But this continues to bob up to the surface, this possible format for where things could go. Now, if that happened and we did get 3 or 4 specials, the idea that, you know, Chris has said, if you get me, you get me on my own. If that's the format that Russell and Bad Wolf are considering for a 60th anniversary, this sort of one David Tennant, one Matt Smith episode, then there's no real reason why, if he will only work alone, why we couldn't get, it's completely impossible that we could get a Christopher Eccleston special, even if we may never see him and the 10th Doctor sort of side by side with Rose and whoever else sort of standing and staring in awe as those two legendary characters, those two legendary incarnations of the same guy were there together. He'd still be part of it. It would still re-establish a connection between us viewers. And if that's all he's willing to offer, you know, if that really is all you're going to bring, Chris, I'd take that. What do you feel about that, Charlotte? Would you accept that? Yeah, no, I quite like this, the idea of, instead of having one really long or just one big sort of night event where it's naturally hard, writing wise, just to fit in so many doctors, and you'd have to have some stretches, I think, to be polite, of plot contrivance and other things. So I honestly think having a series dedicated with a slot for each doctor, it's something different, and I think people would react to that, and I think it actually would really let you flesh out. I think for certain doctors also, they do a lot of good work for fleshing out their doctor, because it's like for David Tennant, I would love to get a special in that sort of Waters of Mars point, the Time Lord Victorious. Actually, don't have it as this weird multi-platform, multiple part thing that they tried. I think no, have that as a special of Tennant in that point, because he can really just go for the harder stuff, go for the slightly darker, and it'd be different from Tennant. It wouldn't be seen the same sort of charming. I think with Matt, maybe you could pick that point when Trenzalor's coming up.
Do you think Russell should write it all, or do you think he should work with people? Maybe work with Stephen Moffat, maybe work with other writers, maybe somebody like Phil Ford, for example?
I think it depends how many specials, but maybe you could do it as like Russell writes a third of them technically, then somebody else does a third, or split it. Yeah. I just think I think having it as a multi sort of story in that sense, I just think it frees up the production and the writers and even the actors, like I said, because they're not having to also. I know it's fun when doctors bicker and they sort of play off each other, but I think naturally that you don't get as much time as on screen as you would maybe want from a certain doctor. So you would just have. I know plenty of people would love it if you just had another 60 plus minutes of Capaldi's Doctor.
Yeah.
Do you know, I just think it's such a better format, and I'm secretly hoping actually that that's what we get, because I think and I also think because of the Jodie era, it can't just be a normal run-of-the-mill special for the 60th. I think they need to do something that really grabs attention and really says, look, we're not scared, we're going full force here.
I think for the general public as well, Charlotte, the people who weren't maybe paying attention in 2013, they may be surprised. They may be feeling like Doctor Who is already, it's gone away. And when it comes back for this special, they may expect that Chris be there. He's very visible at the moment in shows like The A Word and this Dodger that's coming up. So it's not unreasonable. The general public, they don't know that all this has gone on. Not really. They know that he wasn't around for very long, but they haven't been keeping an eye on the story as we have and tracking every word that the man says. We've got somebody on Facebook who's chipping in and says that Christopher Eccleston was a great doctor and is a great actor. But like Charlotte said, he didn't think through what he said to that audience.
Yeah, and you've also got to understand it's at a convention, so you don't really have time to process as quick. You sort of just say what comes out your mouth in that moment. It's not like a sit-down interview.
Yeah. Who Fan Dan says, if fans want it, it's not exploitation. And how is it a cash-in? I couldn't agree more. I love his work, but that doesn't mean I love what he's saying now, adds Kelly. Yeah, and there's no reason why we have to like every word that they say, and it certainly doesn't have to colour how we view them, I suppose. Let's see what else we've got in here. Yeah, lots of people chipping in, and I think, John
and I think also
excelled in his field.
Just sort of what you're saying, I think for people like me and Daniel in the chat, I know Chris has got a really important emotional connection because he was our first Doctor. He was the opening door to this show. So I think a lot of people my age, it would mean a lot emotionally, in a weird sense, to see him come back, because he was that first touching point for us.
We have several people asked that has he built bridges with Russell T Davies yet? Officially no, but both Russell and Chris have spoken publicly about one another's work. Chris recently watched It's a Sin and that was on a year ago. So you really telling me that Chris Eccleston watched Jodie Whittaker's Doctor Who when he's only just got round to seeing It's a Sin? So he's just watched It's a Sin and he was raving about that on Instagram, I think. And Russell has also continued to say nice things about Christopher Eccleston. I think Russell chooses his words carefully, but he never says a bad word about him because it's that etiquette that we were talking about. And the fact that, here he is, a picture we've got on screen there with Chris Eccleston looking a little bit like the War Doctor. And he says in that clip that we looked at, he said creatively, he feels that the 50th anniversary was better off without him, and that the creation of the War Doctor introduced that whole new facet to the canon. Those are his words. I know it made some people anxious, the fundamentalists, but no. And I agree with him up to a point. I now can't really imagine the Doctor Who mythos without the War Doctor, specifically without John Hurt being part of Doctor Who. But that could be completely subjective on my part, because I'd always wanted John Hurt to play the Doctor, so I would never want him not to, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, no, and the difference is, and this is why I sort of laugh when certain fandoms say, "Oh, why do you guys all don't have an issue with the War Doctor, but you're all having a fit about the Fugitive?" And it's like, no, the difference is there was a gap. There was a purposeful gap created by Russell because he didn't have that connective tissue from Paul McGann to Chris. And he did that on purpose. I think more for space. I think, honestly, he wanted that space. But it made just a gap in canon quite nicely. So when Moffat needed something, when Chris didn't want to do it, it didn't break anything. Yes, in hindsight now, it gave sort of the starting point for what we get now with Chris Chibnall and Fugitive. But we don't have an issue so much on a core character thing because it doesn't break stuff. Whereas the Fugitive Doctor, they're having to wedge her in, and there's no other word for it because she doesn't fit anywhere else. So
I also think that there's some value in the fact that, a lot of the time incarnations of the Doctor, we attach ourselves to the actors too. In the case of the War Doctor was played by one of Britain's, maybe even the world's greatest living character actors. The Fugitive Doctor is played by a Brit part actress from Casualty. I don't really see how that's just how it is. I'm sorry, Joe. I like Joe Grant. I like Jo Martin. I think she seems like a nice woman, but she's not John Hurt. Carol Jude says he had an index card with two names, Jodie Whittaker, and I think she means John Pertwee. And Sadako24 says he's much better in Big Finish. His TV era, however, it just feels like to me, morally speaking, the show is actively fighting itself. I don't know about that, Sadako, but you're entitled to your
I think
view.
his Doctor at the beginning, you could see they were trying to work out what they wanted to do with the Doctor in that sort of first series.
Yeah, I think it's really clear, really clean, really clear cut what they're trying to achieve. I think Chris's vision of the Doctor in his head is very rounded, very full in context to those 13 episodes. Obviously, I think it would have been great if you could have done more. I think that would have evolved some more. I think he would have built out from the character. But alas, that wasn't to be. De Maupin said, but he didn't have to say she's the very best. He's a thoughtful man. He would have known it'd be used as ammunition and help divide the fandom even more than it already is.
See,
but
actors
he doesn't know.
Aren't part of the. I think this is what people need to understand. Actors, they're separate from all this fandom stuff, unless they're very.
I agree.
Like, obviously, I know he does conventions, but doesn't mean he's part of fandom. Whereas there are some actors who are part of. A certain one who's been cancelled, John Barrowman. He was, because he was on Twitter and he did a lot of interactions. I think he was actually one of the few that probably did have a bit of an understanding. But Chris, he's just not. He's very much from the outside looking in. I don't even think he's looking into fandom. I think he's on the outside making comments.
I get the impression when you see him at those events, it's quite. I think it's really sweet. Really, he's a man in his mid-50s, and I think he's still a little bit mystified by it.
Yes.
I think he loves the fact that he can interact with his audience in that way, but I think he's still. I won't say he's intimidated by it, but I don't think he understands it yet. I think he receives it he receives it in the spirit in which it is given. He understands that now. He understands the transaction, and despite the fact that he loves music and he loves football and all these things, I still think that he probably wonders, how far do we take it? And I think if he could see us sat here talking about it, sometimes for hours on end on YouTube, he'd probably have good reason to to wonder. Terry on Tuesday, Terry Cooper says, let's face it, he's scared that Matt Capaldi or Tennant would upstage him. That's a possible, but they're on pretty good terms. I've put this together. This can there we are. So yeah, they have met, and this is a bit of a white pill because Chris Eccleston, for all
I've
he's
seen
said,
this.
he's got no problem at all interacting with the other actors. We're going to see him hugging Matt Smith. I mean, the look, the body language, they grab each other tight there. And yeah, okay, they're aware there's cameras all around, but on the sound version of that clip, you can hear Chris Eccleston shout out, Matt, like that, and he sees him, his eyes flicker. They had never met before that moment, literally never met. And you can see the look on Matt Smith's face. He is over the moon to be shaking the hand of this fellow actor and fellow doctor. I think it's a wonderful moment. And Chris has spoken about most of them. Since I've heard him talk about most of the doctors, the ones that he can remember. I've heard Paul McGann talk about Chris Eccleston and say, I know him a little bit, and he had no idea what he was getting into because we've spoken about it. Things like I can imagine. Paul's quite a candid man. Again, I think he's very similar to Chris Eccleston, but Paul is. I think he can read the room slightly better. I think he's a softer person.
Yes.
But that moment with Matt and Chris Eccleston, I just think it's absolutely wonderful. And we had a very similar, this was 3 years ago, 2018. I believe that was in Manchester at a similar event. This was in London, though. This is when Chris Eccleston and Peter Capaldi met. And it was, again, a similar story. Chris is eating an apple, I believe, spies Peter Capaldi. And, within seconds, the big old man hug there, he goes in for the hug. And, it's just wonderful.
And I think also Chris, he whenever he talks, he comes across as he always respects other actors. He seems to always really respect them as craftsmen. That's what it's always come across to me. So I think he will know all the other doctors and just have this respect level because they're actors and because they've done very well. And he sort of just respects that, if anything. And that's the other thing with Jodie. I think he does respect her on a level, just as a pure professional actor to actor. And it's so, I've sort of said this to some other people who can get a bit et up about these comments. It's like, you have to remember, they have their world, we have our world. And it's so hard sometimes to not think how we do, because it is very different to showbiz and how they all sort of treat each other.
Looking at these images there of our two heroes, I think it's genuine emotion, isn't it? Mutual respect, being in the same profession. An actor. I would imagine, when an actor has great success in a role like Doctor Who, it's the best role on TV. Of course, it's going to bond them together, and it means that they've arrived, and they're never going to be a nobody again. But acting, from what Ian Diaz has said about actors that he's worked with, a lot of them. It can be a bit of a struggle before they make their mark in a particular role. And obviously Matt Smith is how old? 37? I think.
Yeah, he'd be
Chris
early
is
30s.
56. Yeah. So here they are together, a generation apart, but united by that role. And both smiles on their faces, genuine smiles. Yeah, you can't fake stuff like that. They may know that there are smartphones all around them, but I don't think you could possibly fake that. There's the white pill. Maybe all's not so bad after all. You're bang on, Dan. That's what I like to hear. Of course I am. Of course I am, Cynix. Thank you. I say I can only read it as I read it, and I think Chris Eccleston, a middle-aged man who is still slightly mystified by everything that he's got involved with Doctor Who, and gradually coming to the party is something that I'm just enjoying seeing, and I hope it continues. And I think we have every reason to be optimistic that bridges may be built between him and Russell T Davies, and that he could be present in some capacity when it comes to 2023. I wouldn't rule it out. And the longer that time goes on, in the meantime, and the more events that Chris goes to and has experiences like that, speaking to people who are enthusiastic and warm towards him and are going to keep pushing him on it, I think the more likely we are to hear something in the positive. Matt is wonderful. Matt is so wonderful. Sorry, Wendy. There's from the Department of Wendology. Good to see you. Two great doctors, says Nix. Not many bad ones, are there? There's not many bad ones. Fair play. That's a lovely clip, says Terry on Tuesday. It is, isn't it? People asking for box sets. I like Matt's top. Can't help you there, Lee Brown. I recognise the logo, but no, I'm not one for the branded sportswear myself. Matt is 40, says the Meta
Wow,
Whovian.
I
Thank
didn't
you.
think he was that old.
I didn't think he was 40 yet, but maybe he is. Maybe, yeah, actually would be. Yeah, 2022. I don't even know what year it is, Charlotte. To put a twist on the same argument, then say all of them, says Carol Jude. And here we are. Vanessa Law clarifier. She steams in there our
She'll
one of the
know.
facts. He'll be 40 in October, I think. And yeah, he said the other day there was a table read at Bad Wolf. Don't know what.
But yes,
that's
it'll be
about.
starting to get to that stage now. Table reads, at least.
I would imagine. Yeah, the scripts have existed for quite a while. Peter Davison tried to say that he wasn't looking forward to Jodie, and then he was slammed for it. That's not technically true, Kelly. He was speaking more conceptually about the balance between male and female heroes, wasn't he, Charlotte? That's a different argument.
He was talking about the Doctor being a role model for young boys, and you can't disagree with that. He was, and how he didn't know how it would translate, I think, was more he was saying at the time, because you don't know it. And I think, honestly, his words that he did get attacked for, he almost was telling us what was going to happen before it happened.
Fair point. Thank you for jumping on, Charlotte. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I thought we'd only do half an hour, 45 minutes, and we've gone for practically done a full live stream. But no, it was a bit spur of the moment. I thought, because I've got some thanks to give out to you wonderful people out there. I mean, particularly Kev Hoofan Man as well. Kev Hoofan Man. And there's Kev Hoofan Man, and there's Kev there's Hoofan Dan. So there's another Kev as well.
They make it harder for us, Dan.
Oh my God.
Harder.
So Kev Hoofan Man. Thank you for the title sequence and all the fan art. We love that too. I've said that before, but I know that he's been away, or he's been ill, or whatever else. And again, thank you to Pete for sending us this review on the way. We can guarantee that on Type 40. And I enjoy getting my giant robot out too. A reminder, let's get this back up on screen. So yes, episode 99 of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, that is up as a video here on the Facebook channel, or as a podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. You name it, we are there. Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Audible, Podbay, you name it, we are over there. That's our full review of the Christmas Invasion. Myself, the Mega Geeky, and David Diaz and Wendy going through David Tennant's opening adventure there, back to Christmas already, for a big old geek out about all of that, and to talk a little bit about the return of David Tennant rumours. That simply will not go away. That does mean, of course, that we are inching ever closer to episode 100 of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. It's all coming together slowly. This is something I wanted to deliver, something special and unique that people won't hear all the time on Doctor Who podcasts. There are a lot of podcasts out there, I know, about pop culture and about Doctor Who. Type 40, I'd like to think, has its own feel. We've got our own MO, and the people that we talk to, I believe, are in many respects people that you wouldn't expect to hear speaking, or maybe have never had a chance to tell their story. And I'm confident that I'm bringing you at least one, maybe two of them on episode 100 of the podcast. That's coming soon, as is the return of Type 40 Live. We're back with more of that fairly soon. You'll barely know we were away, but keep liking, keep sharing, and keep commenting on all the live streams. There's a playlist of all 54 editions of Type 40 Live here on the Facebook channel. Knock yourselves out with what must be 125, possibly longer hours worth of us going on. Myself, Charlotte here, Simon Horton, JT, Barnaby Jago, Matt Pott, Starry-Eyed Girl Sarah Graham, everybody who's on that, everybody who's on there semi-regularly or regularly, all chewing the fat about Doctor Who, past, present, and the future there. So go and knock yourselves out, particularly because we've had a lot of new subscribers over the last week, and so I wanted to make sure that there was something new for you this week. So there's all the old playlists, and there's a brand new video coming this Thursday too with my special guests and me. Charlotte, thanks for joining me on this show. Hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, it's always good to have a good nap.
It is, yeah. And maybe we'll revisit the subject of who's next before they get revealed. But yeah, go and check that out and see what you think of our picks on that video. So I'm going to keep on plugging that. That's it for this time. A little bit of extra Type 40 there for you. There's some more coming up on Thursday. That's just 2 days' time. In the meantime, if you're watching this later on in the week, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one, and hit the cloister bell so you get the notifications about where and what and when we're dropping next. Don't forget, head over to the Type 40 Facebook group too, and send us your pictures of your giant robots and your toys and various other things. If you're very, very clever with those toys and you create custom scenes, we'd love to see some more of that. Yeah, that's it for this time. Keep watching the feed, check out the podcasts, and we'll speak to you again soon. Night, night.
Night, night, everybody.
Ah.